Hello, everybody. Welcome to SindyKing channel. I have a very special guest, and she's definitely no stranger when it comes to Venus. And Venus retrograde is such an interesting topic, especially if you have it as a birth chart or you have it as a Capricorn and it's moving towards Pluto. We all want to know what is going on when it comes to Venus retrograde when this is actually happening right now. I know that Venus and the shadow stage is already happening, and possibly it's going to move right through into March. So this is so important, especially if you're into love. We're gonna, my special guest here is also gonna do some myth busting when it comes to about Venus. If we should fall in love, should we get back to our ex? What should we do? This is such a moment of scariness, and what we should do about our money too. If we're actually investing, if we all have the star point, it's possibly if you don't know what a star point is, you must stay in. So I want to welcome Arielle to my channel, and she's such a lovely and smart and very knowledgeable when it comes to Venus.
Thank you, Cindy, for having me, and thank you for all those compliments. I do my best. You know, the Venus star material came to me several years ago, and when I got it, I realized this is big, and I did want to share it with the world. So thank you for helping in that endeavor.
Yes, and we want to know exactly what's happening when it comes to Venus retrograde in December in Capricorn compared to other Venus retrograde in the past. Maybe tell me a little bit more of what that's going to look like, especially coming up with Pluto that's connected to there as well. So I noticed that.
Right, definitely. Okay, so back to the first slide. This is a Venus Capricorn cycle, and my star points are based on a real happening in the astronomical orbit of Venus around the sun. And actually what it is, not surprisingly, because it's Venus, is it's not Venus acting alone in her orbit around the sun. It is a relationship between Earth and Venus. As they meet every so often, they meet every 9.5 months in a conjunction, what we know is a conjunction in different signs. But in a certain era of time, it's only 5 different signs that they keep meeting in. And these 5 signs repeat over time. So every 4 years, you will get Venus star point in Capricorn, but only every 8 years, you will get a Venus retrograde star point in Capricorn. And so it's more complicated. It's not really that complicated, but it's a little bit. You just have to kind of visualize, the 5 points of the star. And I'll show the next slide. And this is like 8 orbits. This graphic is showing 8 orbits of the Earth-Venus cycle, because we're looking at this from Earth. So it's Earth and Venus together. And they're making this beautiful 5-petaled flower in the middle. You could call it a star, you could call it a flower. This actually looks like a rose, how a rose petal unfolds. There are many flowers that have these 5 petals, and they have this kind of design. The ancients called Venus the morning star or the evening star, depending on whether she's in the morning or in the evening visible. But it's funny that they called her a star when in fact she's a planet. But in fact, she makes a star pattern. And so we're used to just seeing Venus one way. We're used to seeing Venus in our natal chart. I have Venus in Aquarius, or I have Venus in Pisces, or whatever. But forget that for a moment, because these star points, you're going to want, probably by the end of this program, to know where your own Venus star point is and how to track that and how to see its movement. And so this one, because the conjunction coming up is in Capricorn, it's going to be at 18 degrees Capricorn. And because it's retrograde, it will come out of the cazimi or the conjunction. Once it becomes visible again to us, it will become a morning star. When it's an evening star, it follows the conjunction where Venus is on the far side of the Earth or the far side of the sun. And so it's quite distant. And it's up in the sky. It's really far away from Earth, so it's up in the sky. So this one is a more grounded, Capricorn is a more grounded and centered kind of energy. It's an Earth sign. You know, first of all, I like to go to the element. You know, what element is it in? For all of us, for the next 9.5 months until like October, really, I mean, from January till October of 22, we're going to be feeling the resonance of this 18 degree plus 18 to 19 degrees Capricorn morning star. So it's a powerful degree this year too, because I mean, there's a lot of things besides Venus star happening at 18 degrees this year. So that's another thing. If you know your actual personal chart, go ahead and look and see what's at 18 degrees and how that's going to be activated, because this will give you, it's like a very strong acupuncture point, acupuncture needle, you know, penetrating your skin and going right to the artery or right to whatever the needle goes to activate the flow of energy. And that's how sometimes I like to see them too. It's just it's a very strong point that is acting upon you. Most people don't even know it's there, because astrologers generally just look at the planets and signs. They don't look at things like, you know, this astronomical relationship of, for instance, Mercury makes a star as well, but it's a 6-pointed star. Venus makes a 5-pointed star. So you know, it's a different vibration. These points, these numbers have vibrations, and the 5 also has to do with harmony, and it's a 1.6 cycle as well, 1.6 year cycle, because Venus to the Earth is a 1.6 ratio. And that comes together in mathematics as a golden mean, or the golden section. You've probably heard of it if you're into art or photography or design or whatever, but it's a very important number in terms of a value. Let's call it a value that creates harmony and beauty. And that's how we know Venus. So this is going to stay, you know, when Venus is retrograde, the main thing about Venus retrograde is that Venus is in a sign that it's retrograde in for much longer than it would stay normally, because normally Venus only spends a month or less in a sign. She would go through Capricorn pretty quickly, maybe 3.5 to 4 weeks. But in Capricorn, she's going to spend almost, you know, like up until March, and she entered in November. So December, January, February, March, almost 4.5 months in one sign. That's a powerful placement to have in one house of your chart. You want to look at that house. You want to look at what's happening there. Capricorn is the place to be looking right now.
And I know that we also have an eclipse, so that also drags the situation maybe a little bit longer as well.
The eclipse?
Yeah, that we're having as well. So how is that going to affect, would affect the Venus retrograde?
The retrograde happens on December 19th, I think, and the eclipse is December 4th.
Yeah.
So it's a couple of weeks away. It's not right in it, it's not folded into it like sometimes it will be. I think the Venus star retrograde, the last retrograde we had of Venus was in Gemini, and it was in May and June of 2020. And I think we had an eclipse right around that time that was wrapped into it. So sometimes those are even more dramatic. This one's with Pluto, though, so I can't say it's not going to be dramatic, but it will be dramatic in a different way.
Drive right on top of Pluto and then go back again, and then, and then I wonder how potent and how strong that, because Pluto is a very strong, regardless. I have worked with it in church, and I have noticed it's very strong. And I have noticed in birth charts as well, somebody who has Venus and Pluto, like you were saying, there's that dramatic situation when it comes to Venus. It's more potent. That's what I have noticed as well in birth charts. And so it could be loving intensely. That's what the theme is like, right?
Yeah.
Or the money situation become very intense. There's always that power struggle that's happening behind it.
Well, first of all, I see Capricorn as, it is a sign of power, and Pluto's a planet of power, and Venus is a planet of love and harmony, and she's trying to balance all these sort of power issues around her. And so I think this Venus retrograde has a lot to do with I always think of Venus retrograde has to do with our value system, because values are a Venus related thing. Our possessions, our values Venus, it rules Taurus and Libra. And when she's retrograde, when she's in her morning star position, which she will be this year, she's coming out of the conjunction with the sun when she's closest to the earth. And so she's really much more earth-centered. She's in her body more. She's thinking of physical things and material things more. And of course, then we have Capricorn. But I think of the morning star Venus as more related to Taurus, and the evening star Venus is more related to Libra in terms of the two signs that she rules. And she's shifting now. We're still at this moment, we're still in the last part of the Aries star point phase, which began in March of 2021. Aries, a fire sign and an evening star, it was. And so my feelings about it in terms of how do we experience this shift of energies is that for most of this year, people have been Aries, really self-directed, fired up with new ideas and new projects, making a lot of progress, going forward, unimpeded. Aries guardian planet is Mars, and Mars was not retrograde. Mars was unimpeded for the most part. Mars went through 6 whole signs during her Aries star point period. So Mars was making progress and Venus was making progress, and things happened. I don't think it's going to be the same when we go into the Capricorn star. I think all this fiery new initiative that we got in the Aries point is going to somehow come, not so much to a complete halt, but it's going to slow down. The momentum is going to slow down. So think about what you've been working on for the last 9 months and how, the progress you've made on it and the things you've completed, fine, or the goals you set for yourself to make, fine. It was for a lot of people, Aries is a sign of the self and self-discovery, self-improvement, self-awareness. There were a lot of people that I talked to throughout the year that were actually learning astrology for the first time and learning about themselves and their own charts, or they were taking some other kind of course that revealed certain things to them about their own makeup and their own, in terms of, where do I feel not so confident, and where could I use a little more boosting? I've always felt like the Aries star point is people in the Aries star point are excellent coaches. They're aware of wanting personal development, wanting to keep going, wanting to move forward and make progress, and also aware of their own personal, let's say, fears about whether they can really accomplish that or not. But being a Mars governed sign, it's like, it gives you extra courage, it gives you extra strength, it gives you extra momentum to go and do the thing. Now, we've got Saturn actually governing the Capricorn star point that we're going into. Saturn will remain in one sign for the whole time. It's not going to really be moving much. It's moving, about 9 or 10 degrees. That's like 1/3 of a sign through this coming period. So I think it's not like we're not going to accomplish things, but it's like slow down. And Venus retrogrades anyway are reevaluation times. I always see that. It's a 40-day period of Venus retrograde. And 40 days has come up in almost every major religion. Or a lot of spiritual practices as a time to do a certain spiritual practice. And I think the 40-day Venus retrograde is Venus doing her own practice. She's invisible from us for most of her 40-day retrograde. She's away from us. She's not showing herself to us in the morning or the evening. She's changing positions. She's going from the evening, then behind the sun where we can't see her, and then she'll emerge in the morning. But it's sort of like she's taking time out for herself. And I've always said, I think this is a really good time for people to take time out for themselves, because Venus is so much of a relationship planet. How can I help you? What can I do for you? How can we connect? Blah, 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 all of that. Well, when do you do for yourself? Or not even do for yourself, just retreat from certain obligations that you feel like you have to do for other people each day. Obviously, if you're a mother with children that you're raising, and people that you have to take care of, like an elderly parent or a family member or something, you can't always just take that time out and say, hey, I'm going off now, forget it, find somebody else. But there's little things you can do for yourself. You can ask for a little more time within the day, or just be aware of how much you're putting out there, because it's going contrary to what Venus is doing right now.
Right. And that's totally true, because sometimes, like you were mentioning earlier, Venus in Capricorn is more serious, and it has to do with not only material but realistic about our values, right? So if you're in the infatuation world, this is a really good placement. You're saying ground yourself, self-care, self-reflection, self-worth. Like, ask yourself these questions. It's not about go, go, go. This is a great time to check in with yourself. And that's what it sounds like based on this retrograde that we could do. And we have a much better menu, manifesting these things when it comes to reflecting within our love period, within what we love and what we desire. And I know that you were saying that Capricorn is more material. So that could be maybe reflecting the things that you have within your house, or tangible things. Is this really worth what I deserve, or is this enough for me? So I don't know.
Or have I paid too much for something that really doesn't give me any pleasure? Maybe 8 years ago, I bought this huge piece of land or house, and I thought I really wanted it. But now here we are back at that 8-year return cycle. And maybe the Capricorn's in your 4th house. And I've seen when Venus goes retrograde in the 4th and the star point hits the 4th house, people are really into looking at property and ownership. And so back then, 8 years ago, we might have thought, oh, I really need a bigger space, et cetera. Now, in the current world situation and the current climate of what's happening, how things have changed and shifted and our own values have changed, maybe we're looking at this giant space we're in and going, do I really need this? I think I need to downsize. Maybe I need to get rid of some of these things and streamline things, because I think Capricorn and Saturn are very much about streamlining and, using what you have, using the resources you have, but not having too much. Saturn likes to trim, doesn't like excesses like Jupiter and Sagittarius, It's sort of like, it may be that for you, or it may be trimming in another way. But again, Capricorn doesn't like to waste. And so it's going to be kind of interacting, maybe even having a conversation with Venus about, okay, what's realistic for you now? Or how have your goals changed? What is it you were aspiring to? Capricorn often is about, climbing the mountain, getting to the top of the mountain, etc. I wanted to share with you some Capricorn keywords that I came up with. I think maybe you already know some of these, but it might be a good thing to have a review of, because we're looking at it from the lens of Venus. We're looking at it from what do I value? What's worthwhile to me? What's important, from a heart-centered point of view. So maybe you're looking at, and this Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn, so traditional astrology tells us, may not be the best place for Venus, because we're looking at more things from a practical point of view, whereas the heart, Venus and the love energy is working on a different vibratory level. It's working on a feeling kind of sense. So you want to look at, in your relationship, if you have a relationship right now, you want to see how that's taking form in terms of, does it feel like you are that you're always looking for a certain kind of result or a goal, or where people aren't that permeable. You can't look at your partner or your relation, the object of your desire as, somebody that, like, are we going on the same direction? Are we looking at the same goals? That kind of thing. And it's also, Capricorn is it's tradition, it's lineage. It can sometimes be parental either support or parental control. So you want to see, okay, is there a power struggle going on here between who's in charge? Capricorn wants to be the boss.
So does Pluto too. They want to be a boss too.
Exactly. And so what have you got going here, and what needs to change? But with Pluto's saying what needs to change here so we can attain long-term sustainability. Whereas Capricorn is, are we playing by the rule? How are we approaching this? But definitely Pluto's got a big part to play in this Capricorn retrograde cycle. Now, Pluto was in Capricorn still 8 years ago. If you look back to 2014, when we last had a Venus retrograde in Capricorn, we also had Pluto in there.
That's so true. I really like your PowerPoint when it was showing like the key words when it comes to Capricorn. So there might be renewal of rules that could happen in a romantic relationship or business or material things as well. That's what it sounds like based on the our last slide that we're looking
I think corporations, corporations and to some extent the government and the lawmakers come under the auspices of Capricorn. If you're working for a bigger company, I think you're going to see a lot of companies needing to trim down employees, personnel, resources. They're really going to be panicked about the outlook for the economic outlook for the coming year. I think there's going to be a little bit of panic happening around investments and how to pull in our resources and maybe use what we have rather than a big expansion kind of year. I think this last period we were in was much more of an expansion kind of year. We had a few people going up into space. We had Elon Musk, we had Richard Branson, we had Jeff Bezos. They all kind of went up into space and fired off their rockets. And, it's a very Aries kind of thing. There's like, okay, we could do it. We did it. Wow. Little boys with their toys, launching themselves into space and all of that. I think with Capricorn, it's more like, okay, we did it, but now it's like the tools, how I think things, looking at things that are possibly with Pluto breaking down, systems that are breaking down and crumbling and reforming. After all, the United States is going through a Pluto return right now, and 2022 is like the first year it's exact. It's been hovering for a little while, for a couple of years, and it's going to be a long-term effect, probably affecting most of the whole decade, at least the first half of the decade. But we are having the first exact Pluto return this year. What does that look like for the country, and for a country that's supposedly wealthy and a superpower and all these things, I think there's going to be some shortcomings there, some feelings of not quite making it.
Right. Yeah, it's totally true. And a few keywords that we were mentioning as well is like, it's about not expanding. It's definitely about cutting and using what you already have. So there might be a shortage. That's what it could be as well. So we have to find ways to be resourceful in a situation like this. And I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing it as well on the West Coast. And we had the huge rain that was happening in BC and stuff like that, and it was moving down to Washington as well. So we noticed these things, that there is shortage and people are really scrambling for finding, how do we survive in a situation, an emergency situation, but with very limited resources? How do we get together and kind of collaborate and find ways that we could change the rules? So we have noticed rules of gas has changed as well. So that is absolutely true, especially during a time of Pluto is about change. It's forcing you to change. It's not like, I want to change. We're going to do it together, right? We're going to move into it, like it or not. And it could be very scary at times too. Pluto isn't supposed to be like a gentle opportunity of change. It's more like, oh, we have to act now, right now, right? So there's not we could forecast as much as we can, but especially we love astrology for that, right? There's a reason why we can forecast certain things and we can prepare ourselves. And especially if we know that Pluto is very intense, we can find ways, how do we resource the situation, especially as Capricorn is about being realistic, not about, the fantasy and the great glam and stuff. How do we still be fancy and look hot and cool and still survive, right? I think that's what it is. And what is you value? Like a lot of people, in the West Coast who lost, was dealing with the flood and stuff, they lost a lot of things. And that could be just even Capricorn is about our roots as well, where we come from and our ancestors and things like that. So That is
Ancestors is a really important concept for Capricorn. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I really feel like if we can tune into our ancestral lineage and call forth help on that, when we're feeling like we need help. And I think we are going to feel that, because the Sabian symbol for the 19th degree of Capricorn right now is a little girl carrying a heavy bag of groceries. And the idea is, don't be afraid to ask for help. In other words, it's children are carrying more weight now than ever before. Not ever before, maybe not back to the pre-modern times, let's say, but let's say in the past 50 years, 60 years, for the most part, I won't say all around the world, but children have certainly come out of a lot of forced labor situations, and having to work at a young age to support their families. But these days, I feel like we're pushing a lot of, I think we're pushing children way too much, way too fast, and not allowing them to have a childhood really, to really enjoy that part of life, which is meant to be enjoyed, and to say, somebody else is taking care of those heavy responsibilities. But nowadays we're putting a lot on children. And so think of ourselves, even as we're all childlike in a certain way. We're carrying a lot more responsibilities, I think, for the most part, than we normally do. And this has been going on. The Capricorn star points have been happening since 1986, and they will continue to happen until the 2080s. Or 2070s, so somewhere in there. They go for 100 years in each sign. So it's a slow moving cycle of the Venus star through a sign. And so every 4 years, when it comes back to Capricorn, first is a morning star, then as an evening star, then back as a morning star, then as an evening star. It always has that, rotational cycle, that, heartbeat. It's like that in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. Here's a list of the star dates. It started in 1986 as a superior conjunction, and that would have been an evening star. And then 4 years later, morning star, interior conjunction. And then you can see how it alternates, ES, MS, ES, MS, ES. And so now we're interior conjunction. The next one won't be till 2026, and that'll be the exterior conjunction, which will be the evening star. But this is both the end of the 2014 8-year period, okay, that Capricorn started, but Venus started that 8-year cycle in 2014. We're culminating that now. And we're also beginning a new one, 2022, that will culminate not until 2028. Can think of it that way too. You can think of, okay, this is a new 8-year pattern. I mean, Venus is going to do this 5 times in 8 years in different signs. And so I'll show you the actual star pattern of right now, because this is probably something that is worth showing, so that you can see these are the 5 points of the current Venus star clock. The actual Scorpio is ending and going into Libra, because it goes backwards, it rotates clockwise. So it's like the nodes, it goes backwards through the zodiac rather than forwards. So the higher degree is actually the first of the part of it, and the lower degree is the last part of it. But the next Scorpio star is actually going to be Libra in October of this year, which is a very exciting event as Venus is concerned, because it hasn't been in Libra for 150 years, and Libra is a Venus sign. So I think we're going to get some, a shift from Scorpio, 100 years of Scorpio to 100 years of Libra coming up. So that's going to be a big deal later as well.
That's a really good way to bring you back here again and talk about the Libra, because I got a few planets down there too.
Okay. Are they at high degrees or low degrees of Libra?
It's on the lower side, so it's right on point what you're showing right now. It's at 28. So
Okay.
this is really interesting to have, and especially the visual effects, especially the 18 point. So I think does it also affect anybody who has Gemini on the 13 points, and that's how
Mhm.
we can look at the star based on that.
Yeah, this is what you want to do. You want to look at these 5 star points because it moves very slowly in the 8-year period. The 2020 Gemini star happened at 13 degrees, but the 2024, 4 years later, star point will be at 14 Gemini. Occasionally it goes wobbles. You know, generally speaking, it's going clockwise, but sometimes the next star point will be 1 degree behind it rather than 1 degree ahead of it. But it's hovering, if you've got planets between, let's say, 12 and 15 degrees of Gemini, that's really a pretty strong hit right now for you. And you want to take a look at where and how that's happening. Same thing with Aries, 4, 5, 6 degrees of Aries, all hot degrees. 18 to 19 Capricorn, very strong. Really, it's past 3 Scorpio now. It's about really 29 Libra, but it'll come back to 0 Scorpio in 2026. So right on that cusp of Libra Scorpio, that's going to be a sensitive point to the Venus star. And then Leo, the next Leo point will be 20. So 20 Leo, 21 Leo. These are the areas where it's really penetrating. It's meaning, it's influence right now. So if you have planets on or near any of those degrees, I kind of see it as like Venus waking up that planet and bringing it into like a flower, like you've had this plant in your garden for a long time and it's never flowered, and suddenly you see a bud, and then suddenly it opens and you're seeing, oh, now this is the Venus star affecting it. Suddenly that flower on that plant that's been sitting there all that time is budding and opening. And so let's say it's your Mercury. I like to use this example a lot because I've seen it manifest so many times. A lot of people have told me that they want to be a writer. And what is writing connected to? Mercury, right? And so I'll see, oh, in 2023, August, when it's in Leo again, and your Mercury's at 20 degrees Leo, it's going to be like right there. So, be prepared for that. Might be a year ahead, might be 9 months ahead. But when we get into that star point field, that territory where it's coming into play with your Mercury, interplay with your Mercury, this is when the energy is really going to be there for you to open that up. We can use other planets as examples too, but it really does have a long-term effect on sort of what I would call awakening that planet.
Possibility. Do you want to do some myth busting when it comes to like what you should never do and have that fear factor?
Yeah.
Like,
Because Venus retrograde is not like Mercury retrograde. It doesn't mean the same thing. And even Mercury retrograde, I've come to change my tune on that as well. There's a lot of things that are really false that are put out there about it. But with Venus retrograde, I'd have to say any retrograde begins with any function that has RE at the beginning is like a good thing to look at. With Venus, as I said, in her 40-day period of disappearance from our view in the sky, she's on retreat. Maybe it's time for us to go on retreat. That's an RE word, retreat, step back. Don't be so fully engaged with all the people and all the things you've been, getting involved in. It's not like you're going to drop them completely, but you're taking time out for yourself. You're recharging your batteries. You're re-evaluating your relationship conditions. You may be re-evaluating your contracts when it comes to money and finance. Like you've been working at a company for several years now, and you're really doing very well for them. Your performance has really done great for them. But have you gotten a raise? Have you gotten a promotion? Is it time to reevaluate your employment contract? Is it time for you to rethink about, not rethink, but it's really comes from feeling. Venus, Mercury's more about thinking, that function. Venus is more about feeling. So it's those kind of things, really, and not in a bad way. It could be redoing your vows if you're in a relationship and you say, okay, we've come to an impasse, but we've worked it out. We're ready to renew our vows. And many couples do this, they say, okay, we've been through some hurdles. We've been through some obstacles. We weren't sure if we were going to make it or not, but now we're going to say, we're going to both make an effort and we're going to renew our dedication to one another. So it's time to renew, even you'll get tons of emails saying, renew your subscription, renew your subscription. And it's like, okay, but am I still getting the same value out of it that I was when I first started? So maybe I won't renew my subscription right now. Maybe I want a subscription to something new. It's that kind of thing.
I wish we could do that for the holidays. Could we renew our holiday during December? It's interesting that we have it during December anyways, right? So
the second of the 3 Venus-Pluto conjunctions this year are right on, the second one's on Christmas.
that's intense.
I know.
That's like a conversation about our ancestor, maybe. Maybe we'll just have a discussion about our ancestor, which could be a good thing at the dinner table.
It could be a very good thing. That would be a wonderful thing to do. And to think about what Christmas really means rather than the material aspect of it that has, or the commercial aspect of it, because I think a lot of people may be very disappointed this Christmas in what they were expecting and what they're actually receiving. But we have to be grateful for everything we receive. There's blessings abounding. But maybe the packages didn't get delivered. Maybe the mail system went on overload, and maybe the stores ran out of stock. And so your little boy or your little girl can't get you can't get the exact thing for them that you wanted to give to them. And there's going to be major disappointment in certain things, but what can you give to them? What, is that what it's about? Is that what it's really about? So we're thinking of Christmas in a maybe completely different way, a Plutonian Christmas, kind of. I also think that Pluto has so much to do with the Inanna story. Many astrologers have linked Venus to the Inanna myth, which is, and now with Pluto, it's also Persephone, retreating, going into the underworld, disappearing from the sky. We can't see her, she's gone. Where did she go? What are we, there could be some losses here. There could be some separation from good friends, from important relationships, from a breakup or a divorce, or a realization that this has to, all good things must come to an end. People are dying, people are always dying, but it's like, you can have a loss in many different ways. It can be, it's just a time with Pluto, we really have no control. We have to really learn to let go.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're talking about this because Venus always known to be the positive component, but also it has a component of grieving too. And Venus has that, what I call it, it's considered being water. It's exalted in Pisces, so it's better doing in water. So that sometimes having crying is okay, and grieving is okay, purging is okay. And that's what it sounds like. And also talking about our ancestor having gifts as from our ancestor being handed down. So maybe Victorian things back in the days that you find, and you can re-gift those items during Christmas time. That's more meaningful. That that passed down as well. So I notice those themes that happens when it comes to the Capricorn, themes. And maybe that's a great idea of what you were mentioning about not only like worry about the whole idea of you're getting the new item. I don't think it's all about new and like trendy stuff. I think it's all about like quality, Victorian, that possibly is a great opportunity for gifting and it has a meaning behind it.
I'm thinking of those little puzzles and games that have to do with unlocking boxes that are other boxes, or there's little keys and you don't know how to open them. Because in a way with Pluto here with Venus, it's a little bit scorpionic as well. It's opening up Pandora's box. I'm really seeing, and this can be in relationship too, it's like maybe you're feeling, Venus and Pluto together, and Venus in retrograde may not make everybody feel totally secure in their relationship right now. And so you're wondering, gosh, is my partner, he's been distant lately, or she's been kind of going off with her friends a lot lately. What's really going on here? And maybe you're gonna, you can't help yourself, but you want to kind of glance over at their phone or look at their texts, or try to open that Pandora's box. I'm going to call it Pandora's box in a way, where if you're going to try to do that, you better be prepared for what you're going to find, because it may not be exactly what you want to find, but the truth does come out. I think Venus and Pluto have a very strong, well, Pluto has when it's involved with anything, has a very strong way of bringing things out of the shadow into the light. We didn't know about it before, so it didn't concern us. We weren't worried about it, but now it's come out to the light and we realize, oh, you mean this has been going on this whole time? You've been taking money out of this account, or you've been, whatever, some kind of underground, behind the scenes sabotage, has been going on by somebody that you might have trusted. So there's also the thing about betrayal, or you might hear about that from somebody. So I'm not saying that all of these things are going to happen necessarily, because there's a wide range of expressions of this Venus retrograde for each person. We all have our own chart, we all have this setup, but I think the planets are opportunities to show us, particularly a great way of showing us what's next on the agenda. Okay, what kind of secrets are we unlocking in this Venus retrograde in Capricorn? And are we willing to go into that territory, into that somewhat shadowy, often a little bit petrifying territory of what's next? And what you mentioned before, the loss of not just people and things, but important things, climate change is affecting the world, climate conditions, floods, and in other parts of the world, like down under, they have massive fires usually in January, often in January, and what's going to be going on in the Southern Hemisphere. What are the new restrictions? Again, being Saturn being in charge of this Venus star point from Capricorn, what are the new restrictions from the constantly emerging variants of COVID that are going to put us in? Are we going to go back into lockdown? Is travel going to be restricted? There's signs that it already is. Are masks going to be enforced? Are vaccinations going to be enforced? Is this kind of controls are going to be ever present, where here we thought in the Aries cycle, oh, the vaccinations are out, people are going to get well, the virus is going to go away, or it's going to diminish. We don't have to be, we can get on with our lives now. There was a real feeling of optimism and hope. What's going to happen in this Capricorn cycle? Are we going to see more governments imposing new clampdowns on public gatherings and things like that?
Going to have to review some of the powers of how because right now they're all opening up with the whole idea of pleasure is great and we want you to go out there and enjoy it, but I have a feeling that when Venus retrograde, there might be some limitations or restriction. Well, if you do this for us, then we'll give you the grant of allowing you to go to these nice restaurants. Otherwise, sorry, no get together kind of component.
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense when it comes to Capricorn. It's like those pleasure things that you used to enjoy, they might have some sort of restriction for you to be okay with. And it's really interesting when you were saying that Venus and Pluto is about undiscovering things that were hidden in the dark or under the bed, right? What's hiding under the bed, right? And you might not like it, but it helps you. I think Pluto is like what you call it, the tower moment. It really breaks down whatever you have a wall up where you saw it was pretty, but underneath you investigate it, and it might be not that great at the moment, but you discover what is the problem in the relationship, and that's really key word. What is the problem? What is the cause of this to be happening behind my back, right? When this is unfolded, you might be not happy about it, but it gets down to the root problem. Can we resolve it? Are we willing to renew our vows and things like that? I wanted to kind of do a segue here, and I kind of want to talk about your book. I noticed that you have the star point PowerPoint, timetable, and maybe like talk about how do we find it. I'll put this in the description, but tell me like what should I look for, and is it more important to look at where my Venus is in the birth chart versus with my star points? I know that you did the compatibility as well when it comes to the star point, and I love that. That was so accurate. I actually have her book, and because I'm also a traveler myself, so I can move one place to another, and that's just part of my path. But the fact that her book is an ebook is amazing. It's light to carry, and I can whip it out. And if people ask me about it, even in consultation, if you're an astrologer, just know that we're working on tropical. So if you're doing sidereal, just know that you have a subtract whatever it is that kind of works out for it. So I'm just letting audience know about that. So go ahead and tell us, like, how do we work with this Venus star point? And I will put the PDF in the description if,
Yeah, so many people have downloaded this PDF to their phones. It's available at my website, sophiavenus.com, and it's under Find Your Venus Star Point. There's a page at sophiavenus.com that says Discover the Star of Venus, and then it says Find Out More, and then you click there, and then it'll ask different questions. How do I find my Venus star point, for instance? And then it'll take you to this table, which was designed by a woman at the St. Louis Astrological Organization many years ago. I lectured there on it, and she put this together for me, which I'm eternally grateful for. But it's showing at any given time the 5 star points that are in effect. That's what these colored ribbons are down here. And these are the every 9-month dates when the star point changes. And it'll say D after it, which means direct, or it'll say R after it, which means retrograde. So out of the retrograde comes the morning star, out of the direct comes the evening star. You usually want to look at the star point prior to your birth, not the next one ahead, unless, and this is only a very rare exception, you were born within a week or a few days of the next one, and both the sun and Venus are already in the next sign. For instance, the star point this year isn't really going to happen until January 9th of 22 at 18 Capricorn. But that means for 18 days, the sun has already been in Capricorn. And also we know that Venus has already entered Capricorn in November. So for over a month, Venus has already been in Capricorn. Well, once the sun, after the 21st of December, gets into Capricorn, they're both there. And the star point is coming in Capricorn. So you could, we've got a new baby on the way that's due to be born in late December or even the first few days of January. Consider it a Venus star point Capricorn baby. And you can use the star points on a new job, a new relationship, you know, if you, whatever you do charts on. And I put the Venus star point in every chart. I start my consultations with the Venus star point, and I usually end it with the Venus star point as well, because I feel like it's such an important addition to the astrological birth chart in terms of helping a person find their joy. I call it finding your joy in your life.
That is totally true, because Venus is all about fulfillment, and a lot of people here, especially listening to on this channel, is all about either looking for love, and how do we find love? How do we find fulfillment within ourselves, within our relationship, or within the people that is part of our life? So I think this is such an important point to have and to talk about as well. You were mentioning about books.
Oh yeah, thank you for that. Here are the 2 books. One's a print version and one is the ebook. And the ebook is available both on my website and you know, you just do a search for the Venus star point as a book, and it'll come up in multiple outlets, usually Amazon or something like that. But there's other outlets besides Amazon, online suppliers of books that will give you a digital download of this. It's an abridged version of Venus Star Rising, the print book, because the print book is over 400 pages. And it has all the charts and graphs and historical events and lots of astronomical things and mythology and astrology of Venus and so forth. How Venus was really honored by our ancient predecessors, by many different ancient cultures. You know, the Greeks, the Romans, the Maya, the Chinese, the Babylonian, the Egyptian. You know, there's a lot of sky watchers back in the day that were looking and noticing the 5 points of Venus and seeing how it was both a morning star and an evening star, and how it, you know, tracking its movement. So I think that's all in this book, besides the interpretations of your personal star point. And but this one is more like getting right to the heart of it. Find your star point. What does it mean? Who do you connect with? You know, like, what are the star point relationships in your life? And going back to what we were showing before, again, if we're talking about a baby being born right now, and the coming Capricorn star point, that would be their head point right up here. And then their arms would be Aries and Scorpio, and their feet would be Gemini and Leo. And so these are your star partners. And so you want to look at, well, who's on your arm, who's on your leg, who is feeding you energy, who are you feeding energy to? That's a more advanced way of working with the Venus star, and not necessary for everybody to learn that immediately. But as you, I think the most important thing is learn your own star point really well, where it is in your chart, what the governing planet is. Like you were saying, Capricorn star point. Okay, so where's Saturn in the chart, and how do they connect with one another? But you can still look at the sun sign and the Venus sign to see what do Venus and the sun say individually. And then the star point, just think of it as a sun-Venus conjunction, because that's really what it is.
Right. I'd love to hear a little bit, a snippet about somebody have sun actually on top of Venus as a conjunction, as a very close, because there's a lot of myth out there that, it might be you don't have love, might not have money, you might not see things that is beauty as what other people would see it, or fairness. It's combusted, right? So, or it's considered to be invisible, or it's considered to be cazimi as well.
Yeah, and so it was actually a Vedic astrologer that said this, and I can't remember who said it, that there was a difference between combust and cazimi of a planet. And the difference is the sun is the king. And if the planet is combust, it's in the court, it's in the room, it's in the audience, it's close to the king, okay? But who's going to pay attention to that person or that planet? Everybody's eyes are on the king. But when it's cazimi, the king has actually singled you out and said, come sit next to me, come sit right by my side. You are my queen, or you are my special whatever, child or person. And so now everybody's focused on you as well. And so cazimi is much more powerful. But the other myth I want to bust about combust Venus and the sun is that, okay, one of the first examples is I looked at hundreds of celebrity examples before I published the book, just to see, how does this work? So the first combust cazimi person I worked on, and it is cazimi, she was born on the day of the star point, is Oprah. And if anybody wants to say you're not going to have money in your life, or you're not going to have love in your life because of a Venus cazimi or combust, just take a look at her. Now, also, I looked at many stars that had celebrities or stars or sports figures or whatever who had sun cazimi Venus. And basically, when I looked at their biographies, I would read that they actually broke the record for being the highest paid person, like the first woman who was the highest paid actress, or the first person of color who broke this barrier and who achieved this, or who, so cazimi actually gives you a whole lot of strength and a whole lot of power, having it like that, because again, it's the lineup of the sun, Venus, and the earth. They're all lined up. True, you can't see Venus in the sky then because she's behind the sun. So, the power might be inside, but the people that I've looked at, Leonardo DiCaprio is another Venus cazimi person, evening star in Scorpio. I don't know what his love life is like, particularly. He's been up and down, but you certainly can't complain about the paychecks he's received and the fame and the notoriety and so forth. And I love it that his star point was in Scorpio, because one of the most iconic roles that he was in was the Titanic, where that loss, they came together so beautifully, and for a moment they had this bliss, and then suddenly the ship is sinking, and but one of the last frames of the film is like he's sinking in ice below the water. It was just such a scorpionic image. I couldn't help but saying, wow, this is pretty amazing,
Oh, that's so good. And I want to thank you so much for sharing these case studies. And we have learned so much, at least I have learned and reviewed quite a bit about Venus point and relationship and what to expect, especially when, we have these star point now to play with in our chart. So, and I think your tools is going to be so beneficial for many people, and it'll be an eye-opening for many people, especially if they want to have fulfillment in their life. And I find that your book is really easy to read. Everything is a lot easy to follow. And I love your website, by the way, and it's very actually quite beautiful. So if you guys have a chance, definitely I'll leave everything down below in the description, how to book a consultation with her as well. She has a few courses that she's running and webinars. So, and that all information is on her website as well, and her book as well. You can definitely get the ebook, or you can get the printed book as well. And if you're a type of person likes to highlight, by all means, get the book themselves. And I'm so grateful that you have shared this with us. Do you have any last wisdom word for anybody who has Venus in Capricorn or as a point as well?
This is a really important retrograde cycle for you if you have it in Capricorn, Venus. Really, for any planet in Capricorn, that's going to be within like about 11 degrees to 25 degrees of Capricorn, which is where the retrograde is going to be, because it's going to pass over that point 3 times, and it's going to, along with Pluto, it's going to go through a cycle of death and rebirth and regeneration somehow. And I think that it's really, if you've got Venus there, this is a Venus renewal cycle for you. So it's quite important. Then I would really look at the house that those 2 Venuses are in, and where that's happening, where you're investing or reinvesting, because it's not just what's not valuable to you. It's you're claiming now for this next 8 years, what is valuable? What am I investing in now? I wasn't ready 8 years ago to think about that, but now I am.
Thank you. That's a really good wisdom of words for those who are having Venus in retrograde, especially in Capricorn. And Arielle, thank you so much for coming on here. We would love to have you back when it comes to Libra season.
Okay.
And definitely leave a comment down below, especially what you experienced during the retrograde. I know that you guys come back and watch the video twice, 3 times again. And sometimes, I know there's a lot of information here, and sometimes we need to digest it the first time and then go ahead, speed it up, the video again by maybe 1.25, whatever, or 1.5, and really go back to the video and leave a comment down below and share your story. Because when you share your story, what happens is not only it benefits yourself, but also other people can learn from it, what they also have seen as well, so they don't feel alone. So thank you so much. And